Welcome to the How Did We Get Here podcast, the show that allows inspiring women from all walks of life a place to tell their story. Follow along every fortnight as we chat about each woman's challenges, life lessons, and words of wisdom that they have picked up along the way. Everything that has led them to being right here and right now. I'm your host, Jess, and from wherever you are in the world, I hope the story you hear today makes you smile, laugh, and maybe even cry a little. I hope it inspires you and fills your cup up just a little bit more, because in this day and age, inspiration and stories are always worth sharing. So grab a coffee or a tea and settle in for today's episode. And welcome back to the How Did We Get Here podcast. Thank you all so much for tuning in to today's episode. For our 9th episode, I would love to welcome the amazing Sequoia. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me.
I've been following you for a couple of years now, and I know you through obviously the gym space and the fitness space and a few of our mutual friends and things like that from the gym, but like I look up to you so much in so many ways for everything that you've done, everything that you've built for yourself. And I feel really honored that you said yes to coming on the show today. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I feel like we've been in each other's space online like for quite a while. And obviously we connected when you came to the seminar, which was incredible. So yeah, I love everything that you do and I love the podcast and I'm super excited to be on it. So thank you so much.
So welcome. Okay, well, I know you already know some of the questions that I do regularly ask my guests, but I love kicking off every episode with my favorite question of if you were to introduce yourself to somebody without telling them what you do for work, how would you do that?
Which is quite a hard question because when people ask you, tell me about yourself, you immediately go to all of the labels and it's quite hard to describe yourself. I would say I'm quite an independent person, and for myself to recharge, I like to have alone time. I love public speaking. I love being around other women. Obviously, I have a women's only gym, so I enjoy that space and I get a lot of energy from coaching classes and things like that. But to come back and recharge, I really, really need my alone time. Which sounds kind of conflicting. It's like I love being social, I love being around people, but I also am someone who would say I'm really independent. I feel like when people first meet me, I may seem a little bit reserved. I would say I'm both introverted and extroverted, and it does take a little bit of time for me to warm up to someone. But one of my favorite qualities about myself is I'm very open-minded and non-judgmental. I love that quality in other people, and that's something that I really value in myself. And I would say that a big passion of mine and something that really defines me is the fact that I love supporting women in many different areas.
Fuck yeah.
Female empowerment. Go girl.
Same. Honestly, same. Most definitely. Well, you have just such an energy about you as a person. And, I think we officially properly met for the first time when I came down to the gym for the seminar. And I was just like, wow, she's exactly the way that you present yourself and you show yourself online is how you are in person. And I really, especially in this day and age, like I really, really love that about you as well. And just your authenticity in terms of your values and who you are as a person and what you stand for and what you've built for yourself is just a testament to you as a person. So yeah, I think you described yourself very well.
Oh, thank you so much.
Okay.
When I go to post things on social media, I'm like, I second guess it as we do, but I'm like, oh, but this might contradict this and this doesn't really align with this. But I'm like, you know what? This is me. I have many different thoughts, many different parts of me, and let's just share it all.
I honestly could not agree more. Like sometimes I'm the same. Like I sometimes feel like I overshare sometimes. And my mom being very Greek and a little bit, old school in that sense. She's like, Jess, you don't have to share everything that you believe in or everything. I'm like, Mom, but that's my outlet. Like social media to me is my outlet, and it's a way for me to sort of show the world who I am. And I'm a multifaceted person. Like I'm not just one way. So I love that we can do that with social media.
Yeah, 100%.
But it's also a bit shit because people have their opinions and they suck sometimes.
We block it out.
Yeah, just block the haters out completely. Okay, so for our listeners who might not know who you are, take us back to your childhood. Give us a little bit of an insight into who you are as a person in terms of the moments and the events and things that have shaped you into who you are today. Because, you know, we are who we are in this day and age, at this age that we are, as a result of all of the things that we've gone through and all of the things that we've experienced. And, you know, I firmly believe that everything that we go through in life shapes us for some way, in some way or another, into who we are. So take us back.
For sure. Thank you so much. It's a great question. So, when I think back to my childhood, I do think of it as a really positive experience. But I did have something happen when I was 5. So, my mum passed away. So, she committed suicide when I was 5 and my brother was 2. And so, that left me with just my dad. So, my dad became a single dad. And at the time, he was in his prime. He's in his early 30s and he's been left with 2 young children. And where most men perhaps would have fled or not stepped up to that position that he was in, my dad stepped up big time. And I can't express how much he has shaped me into the person that I am. And I can't imagine, you know, he's just lost his wife, the mother of his kids, you know, all of the financial stress of that, all of the emotional stress of that, and then also being left with these 2 little kids that are just like completely reliant on him. So although that was obviously a really sad time for, you know, 2 kids to lose their mum at such young ages, it could have been a lot worse. I always think back to that, it could have been a lot worse. And when I was that age, I obviously don't really have many memories of it, but I remember just not really understanding it to a
what
full
was happening. Yeah.
Being in a room and all of my family telling me and everyone cried. So I thought, oh, I've got to cry. Like, this is a sad time. And then I went to school and told it show and tell, like, oh, my mum died on the weekend. It's not funny.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry for laughing, but like that's the innocence of you as a kid. Oh my God.
And so that obviously shows that I didn't understand what was going on. But the way that my dad raised my brother and I is just incredible. And we didn't have much money growing up at all. I was always ashamed of the houses that we lived in, and we never went on holidays and things like that. But in saying that, my dad would save up all year to give us Christmas presents, to make, like, he would lay by things and he would make it work. And one of the biggest things that I took away from my dad is he always told me, you're intelligent, you can do whatever you want, you're beautiful. Like,
I'm going to cry.
There was always that really beautiful confirmation and reassurance that, like, you're so smart, Sequoia, you're so beautiful, good. Like, and when I was really young, I loved learning. Like, I wanted to watch documentaries. I used to write little fact books. Like, that was my thing.
I love that.
All that. And he really played into it. Like, he would do my homework with me. He'd put a lot of attention into my education.
Yeah,
Which is incredible. He obviously saw that's what I liked, and he really attached to that. And I was really smart in school. And another really big moment is I remember being, what was it called, like the parent-teacher
night? Yeah, parent-teacher night.
It was like, I was in year 6 going into high school, and my teacher said to my dad, Sequoia is so intelligent. She could be anything that she wants. I even believe she could be the Prime Minister of Australia. And as a kid, like, imagine how much that just, like, lights up.
You're like,
the Prime Minister of Australia? Like, now at 30, I couldn't think of anything.
No, thank you.
I think back to these figures that I had. You know, obviously I didn't have my mum, but teachers, my dad, my nan, people like that who I feel so, so lucky to have
as your role models.
Exactly. And that positive reassurance, because it's not common. Like, you know, we both work with women. We have a lot of conversations, you know, surrounding this. And it's not common to have that, to be told that you can do things, that you're doing well at this. Like, it's not common. So I know that growing up without a mum would have its implications. You know, long term, but in the moment, I really didn't feel like I was missing out. And I felt like I had so many different role models around me
who helped create, I think, your mum in a different space, as in, like, they all became her in a different. Oh my God, this is making me really emotional. That's so beautiful. That's amazing.
I also think that now, like looking at what I do for work, it's like I'm really nurturing as a coach. I'm really nurturing to all of my friends around me. So I feel like I'm being that figure to a lot of people. You know, I feel like I'm sometimes I could say I'm like hyper independent, and I feel like that could play into it. And, you know, I'm not saying that it didn't have its implications long term, but again, I always just think it could have been a lot worse.
Yep. Wow. That's amazing. That's just so beautiful. And I feel like your dad, no matter what you chose to do with your life, would have been and is proud of you no matter what. You
Yeah.
know, that's, oh my God, that's so beautiful. Okay, and then moving into your teenage years and then leaving school, sort of where did your path go from there?
Yeah. So coming into high school, I still was always really intelligent at school and did well, but I would say about the year 8 mark, which is probably a bit of a pivotal moment for most people,
Yep,
getting
naughty.
into drinking, doing
Yep.
all the naughty things.
Mhm.
Some people say like hanging around with the wrong people. I was probably the wrong people. Like I
You were the rebel.
don't want to blame it on anyone else. And so I really started to push more towards like the party and social scene.
Mhm.
When I got into my teen years. And when I finished school, I still did year 11 and 12. I was really unsure with what I wanted to do. And I think it was more so because I just cared more about going out. Like I had a retail job, and then I also had a hospitality job, and that just, it worked for me. It gave me flexibility. I could still go out on the weekends, but I was just really, really unsure of what direction that I wanted to take. And then I think I would have been 19 or 20 when I decided that I wanted to go to uni.
Mhm.
But the ATAR that I got wasn't enough. I wanted to get into psychology. So
Yep.
I did 6 months of open foundation. And so that
Mhm.
got me the ATAR to get into psychology. And I started doing that at Newcastle Uni.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it didn't last long, but that's
That's okay. You still got in.
and so it was about a year and a half into that I was like, I want a job that I really, really enjoy. Like I'm sick of retail, I'm sick of
That's fine.
hospitality. I was like, that's when I started going to the gym. I was starting to get into the gym. I was like, oh, maybe being a PT would be a good job on the side.
Mhm.
And so I did my certificates.
Mhm.
And then I decided that I really love this. I'm really enjoying this. Like that was when I first started like posting on Instagram about going to the gym and getting into the fitness space in that regard. I'm like, I want to do this. And that's when I moved from Newcastle to Sydney to have my first job as a PT.
Yep. Which gym was your first job?
Blacktown UFC. And I remember I just looked it up on Seek and I was like, UFC gym, that'd be so fun.
How cool.
Sydney did the interview and the guy was like, look, I really want to hire you, but you don't live here. What are you planning on doing? I was like, oh, don't worry, I'll find a place. Like, just I'll
So
figure it out.
did you drive from Newcastle to Sydney? Wow.
Yeah,
Far
yeah.
out.
And he was just like, how are you planning on making this work? But I'm very much like when I want something, I'm like, oh, I need it now. So I was like, oh, don't
Yep.
worry. And I had a friend that lived in Sydney, so
Yep.
I moved in with her.
Wow. And then so from there, so you started, how many years were you working at UFC?
It wasn't long. It was about, I think, maybe 8 months. And then I
Mhm.
moved to a different gym. I did Body Fit. I went to Barangaroo Fitness first. And then I ended up at Pato Performance, which was my last job as a
Mhm.
PT, which
Yep.
is an incredible gym here in Sydney. It's where I train now.
Yep.
Everyone knows Pato if you're in the fitness
Everyone knows Pato. Yeah. Yep.
and I absolutely loved it there. And I felt like that was where I really was surrounded by people who were really successful and really good at what they did. And that's where
Mhm.
I found my interest for strength training. And I kind of started my own journey with strength training. So I was being coached by Cameron Orb, who's Sebastian Orb's
Brother.
brother.
Yep.
And that's kind of where I found my love for strength training. I was like, this is what I enjoy. And I was getting really good at it. And then that was about the time that lockdown happened.
Yep. Far out. So then when did you, so for the people that don't know, tell us a little bit about right now what you're doing with work
Yeah, for sure.
and then sort of how you created that beautiful space that you have.
For sure. So when lockdown hit, I moved back to Newcastle, which is where I'm from. And that was to be with, I was seeing a guy at the time. And so he was like, moving with me. My family was there. I didn't have a job. No gyms were open. All right, beautiful. Let's do that. And I can't remember, the restrictions started to ease and you were allowed to do PT. And so, do you know what's it called, like Storage King, like all of those storage places.
Yeah. Did you?
That's where me and my ex were training at the time, right? We
I,
were in a storage what's it called, Storage King, whatever. And
yeah, like one of those storage
I was
units.
like, oh, maybe I can start doing PT from there.
Oh my God.
I literally started doing PT from like
A storage unit.
tiny storage. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And
Did you guys buy your own equipment in lockdown?
yeah, it was like shitty equipment off Marketplace.
Yeah, so did I. Yeah, same thing. My dad made like a full decked out gym in the backyard, and just like that's where we trained for a year.
We
It
just
was
had to do
crazy.
whatever we could at that time.
Yeah.
It was so hard to get. I mean, we were driving like 40 minutes down
Every
to pick up one dumbbell. Like, it was wild, wasn't
yeah.
it?
And like meeting up with messaging people like it was like some sneaky on the black market trying to buy a rack of dumbbells.
I've got to leave my LJ for this one.
Oh my God. It still blows my mind that was a thing, that's how we lived for a while. Like, it's actually crazy.
Crazy, crazy. And for a long time.
Yeah.
I feel like now that we're out of it, it seems like it was a really short period of time, but it was a long time.
It was a long time. Yeah. Oh my God. Okay. So storage unit training facility.
And then once gyms were properly able to reopen, I was getting good feedback of women saying like, oh, they didn't care. They could just come there dressed however they wanted. Obviously, you're at a storage shed. But
Pajamas and slides.
continue that like women's like safe space.
Yep.
So I then had a bit more of a professional, like an industrial gym setup, but it was still quite small. It's still like 60 squares. You could only do PT in there. So I started doing PT, and that's when I named it the PT Center.
Yep.
And so that was probably for about 8 months. I was just doing one-on-one PTs, and I got booked out quite quickly. And I think because I'm from Newcastle, I went to school here. It was a lot of people that I knew, and the word spread quite quickly.
Mm-hmm.
To the point where I was like, I can't take on any more PTs. I am like burnt out. Like,
yep.
One-on-one, it's like you're giving all of your energy to that one person.
And it's draining.
It is.
Yep.
It is. And like, I love one-on-one. I think you get so much value out of it, and I really believe in it. But anyone who's a PT that's listening to us knows the feels. It's hard, and
it's exhausting.
I was like, I've got to do something else. And so at the time, my partner and I decided to go into business together, and we opened up what was called the PT Center, which is the space that I'm still in today. And so we started offering group training and hired 2 staff, which was super exciting. And I want to say that it blew up, but it didn't initially. I had a lot of people. I had 140 people on a wait list.
Yep.
And I was like, oh yeah, that's so many people. First couple of classes, I'm like, wait a minute.
Where's all the people? Where's 140 people?
But in saying that, a couple of months in,
momentum started building, word started spreading, and it's like, yeah, we're on.
And we did our first challenge. We were obviously a good point of difference was that we were women's only. And yeah, so I ran that business for 3.5 years, and then maybe 4. And only recently in 2024, I went through a breakup in 2023. And so I was doing it on my own. I was always pretty much doing it on my own, but
that's another story.
But I was in business on my own, and I had to kind of make a decision of what I wanted to do. And my best friend, Ebony, we live in each other's pockets. I tell her
she's also hilarious. She's amazing. Yeah.
But obviously, as being my best friend, I was telling her a lot about the gym, and she kind of made it one time saying like, oh, maybe, I'll have a career change and come into the business. And I kind of remembered that. I was like, oh, you would be amazing. Like,
remember when you said that?
Yeah. And she just has the most incredible personality and is so driven. And I knew that she'd be a really good business partner. So I remember I messaged her and said, come for a meeting at the gym. And she was like, I'm your best friend. Like, why are we having a meeting?
Like, I'm just going to show up.
And I had like this 6-page Word document of like, okay, so then we're going to do this, and then we're going to do this.
Oh my God. I love that though. She would have been like, what the fuck, are you okay?
And then yes. And then so we went through a big rebrand. So this is super fresh.
I saw, it was amazing.
7 weeks into the business, and we've renamed it Club 94, and still all the great things that the PT Center was. Having 2 women co-owners, and we both have a really big passion for helping women, and we both have our own stories of going through domestic violence and going through our own challenges.
Mm-hmm.
We had like a big passion to help women, and us coming into business, we knew that we wanted to do a lot more charity work, we knew that we wanted to do a lot more workshops and things like that. So just a slightly different shift, but the programming still stays very similar. It's weight training, it's strength training, it's what we perceive to be optimal for women.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, just with a nice little refresh.
I mean, just a rebrand. I think that's fantastic, and especially like bringing Ebony into the business. I think it was the perfect time to do that. Everything sort of aligned really, really well, and that it's a fresh start for a space that you love and a business that you're so passionate about. And I think perfect timing, perfect scenario, and that is so cool. I have to come down now for the rebrand and come and visit. Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, leading on from that, I love sort of asking my guests, and again, this is probably a really big question, but we've already sort of gotten a good understanding in terms of what you're passionate about and the things that you do in your day to day that bring you joy and purpose and things like that. But in a nutshell, if you were to sort of summarize what your purpose is in this world, what would that be?
There's so many things that I do enjoy. And number one, I find a lot of enjoyment and get a lot of fulfillment from coaching classes. I love coaching group classes. I love the energy in a group session. I love being able to like spread my energy across multiple women and creating that vibe.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a Leo, so leadership is a big thing.
I love Leos. I get along so well with Leos.
What star sign are you? Just as a little side note.
I'm a Scorpio.
Oh, sexy.
And November Scorpio.
You've already had your birthday, yes. It's already over.
Yes, dirty 30. Just up to you.
Yeah, so leadership is a big characteristic trait as a Leo, and I do find a lot of enjoyment out of like running a team and being a leader to my coaches and to our members. And I I get a lot of enjoyment out of planning things for Club 94 and then seeing them happen.
Yeah.
Owning a business, as you would know, it's a lot of planning and then executing, and I am addicted to that feeling.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
So good.
And I've also recently started a podcast with Ebony, and I'm loving doing that, where we're doing weekly episodes, and it's something that I really look forward to each week. And I think it comes into having that passion of supporting women and hopefully making, by being in difficult conversations and also by being ourselves. Like if you listen to our podcast, it's like icks about men. It's like this. It's like it's just
It's everything. It's literally everything.
everything. But it's like womanhood is not one thing. It's so many different
Yes.
things. So I find so much passion in doing that, and I'm really looking forward to doing that. And yeah, like I said, doing a lot more work in the charity space.
Which charities in particular are you wanting to do a lot more work with?
Yeah, so at the moment we're doing a self-defense course.
Mm-hmm.
So my brother's an MMA coach and fighter, and so he's helped me design the actual program for that.
Yep.
And then we've teamed up with Lift Women. And so what they do is empowerment through self-defense, but also just teaching women about boundaries, how to notice red flags and things like that. So we're raising money for that charity. That's our charity for November.
Mm-hmm.
And then December, I don't want to get the name wrong, so I'm not going to say the name. But
Okay. Fair.
it's a local business in Newcastle, and what they do is they gift clothes for women who perhaps have like a job interview or a child's formal or something like that, where they might not have access to like clothes like that. And so you can go in, donate clothes, and then that's where that's being given. So that's our December charity.
That's amazing. I may have some clothes as well that I would love to donate to. Yeah.
That'd be beautiful.
That's so good. I love that. So I think that's your purpose in essence, like giving back to people and sort of creating a space, I think, as well for women, especially to feel welcomed, supported, heard, and valued. Would you say that that's your main sort of purpose?
Yeah, 100%. Because some of the conversations that I have with our members and with my clients, like genuinely break my heart in regards to the way that they feel about themselves and the way that they perceive themselves. And like Ebony coming new into the business, that's one of the biggest things that she said to me. She's like, I just can't believe, the way that some women speak about themselves, or even just like how hard they are on themselves. And, that's obviously, it's new to her. And it was affirming to me to hear her come in and say the same thing, because I've always kind of had that thought. And to hopefully make some kind of change in these women's lives is
everything.
It's everything, 100%.
You're just amazing. So amazing. I love it. I love it so much.
Thank you.
I'm in full support of all of that. Okay, well, if you were to give one piece of advice to young Sequoia, what would that be?
Oh my God, I struggle so much with this question. For the simple fact that I feel like everything that has happened to me in my childhood, in my adult life, has happened for a reason. Sounds a little bit cliche, but I feel like to give advice, it's like, oh, you know what? Just do exactly what you're doing, because you'll learn all the lessons that you're supposed to learn in the right order that you're supposed to learn them. And I feel like any word of advice, the younger me probably wouldn't have listened.
Yeah.
But I really struggle with that question. I've been asked that question before, but I don't really have an answer.
I think that's a good answer though, in itself, because it tells a lot about you as a person, and it tells a lot about your experience in this world as, someone who's, gone through adversity, gone through challenges, lived a life that was on your terms. And because of that, you wouldn't change a thing, and you wouldn't necessarily give your younger self a piece of advice, because you're like, well, honey, you're going to learn it anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I feel like when I was explaining, from childhood to when I opened the gym, there's so much that's happened in between then that it might just sound like this great success story. Oh yeah, like then this happened, then this happened, this happened. But to say that there's been challenges and setbacks is like a massive understatement.
Yeah.
A lot of people close to me know certain things, and it's something that I do want to share more of, because when I do tell people, they're like, you would just never know, or you would, like, from the outside looking in, would just think that, oh yeah, she did this, and then she did this, and then then here she is.
Well, if you do want to share any sort of aspects of that in this space, you are more than welcome to, and it is a safe space too. But again, we know that this is a very personal thing to talk about, because it is your life, and it is putting it out there. And, I want to give you the space to be able to do that. But I know that that's, within your own personal boundaries to do so. So it's completely up to you.
Thank you. I feel like it would be we could, I don't know if you
Of course we can backtrack. Yeah.
Where did we get to?
So in terms of
I think of like big things that like have impacted me.
Yeah.
So living in Newcastle, it's quite a small town, still quite a small coastal town. And so I've moved back and forth from Sydney 3 times.
Yeah.
And so I really enjoy the feeling of, like, what's the word? A little fish in a big pond. Is that the right saying?
Yes. Yeah. Being a little fish in a big pond. Yeah. The other way around.
I really love that feeling. And so moving to Sydney, although it's literally 2 hours south, it's a complete different world.
It's a big pond.
It's a big pond.
It's a big pond.
I love that feeling. And so I moved to Sydney when I was like early 20s. And this is before I was a PT. This is when I was still doing retail and hospitality. And I was living in an apartment on my own, and I had met a guy, and it wasn't a relationship. It was just a friendship. And the way that he presented himself was, I can see good in you, blah, 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 blah. Like, just a friendship kind of situation. And then there was one instance where, and I hope it's okay to share this, trigger warning, he very violently sexually assaulted me in the worst way that you can imagine in my own apartment. And I remember calling my friend after it had happened, and I was just distraught. And I just remember saying, I don't think I'll ever be the same ever again.
Oh, honey.
My friend was obviously broken for me, and she came to Sydney, packed up all my stuff, and I was able to move back in with her. And I remember like moving back to Newcastle, and everyone was like, why'd you move back? Oh, it didn't work out. Like, kind of just, they just didn't understand.
Just,
And I could never.
yeah, and a little bit narrow-minded, like that small town
Yeah, and
mentality.
I did
Yeah.
feel a bit ashamed because I was like, "Oh, I'm moving to Sydney, everyone!" Like, blah blah blah. Like, and at the
Yeah.
time, I was studying at Macquarie University, and it was like this really exciting thing. And for that to happen, it did have a really big impact on me. And something valuable that I didn't know until I had this experience is if you do experience any kind of sexual assault, is you can go to any hospital,
Mm-hmm.
say that this has happened to you, and they can take a sample. And so,
Yep. A swab sample. Yep.
yeah, and often when you're in the moment, you don't know if you want to take legal action because
Mm-hmm.
it's very scary. And what they do is they keep that sample for I think 5 to 7 years. I'm not sure on the exact number.
Mm-hmm.
That's there. So if you ever make the decision later down the track that you want to
Press.
take action, you've got some kind of evidence. And I didn't know that that was a thing, but I feel like putting that information out there is really, really valuable.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's an incredible service, and you get to speak to a social worker, and there is a lot of support there. But when I then did become a PT, and I saw the job in Sydney, there
Yeah.
was obviously a lot of hesitation and a lot of,
Absolutely. You would have just sort of triggered yourself, and you would have been really scared to jump at that opportunity again and move back to the place where that had happened to you.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And yeah, there was a lot of hesitation, but I also knew how much it would do for my career
Mm-hmm.
as a PT. And so yeah, I took the leap and moved back to Sydney, and I haven't had an experience like that. And I feel like moving to Sydney, if I didn't do that, I don't think that my career would be where it is today, and I wouldn't have met the people that I did meet in Sydney, and
Mm-hmm.
all of the seminars and all of the connections that I had made
Everything
whilst
else.
I was there. So not taking that risk, I guess you could say it's a risk, could have put me in a different position. And then I ended up moving back to Newcastle, like I said, lockdown, relationship,
All of that.
all
Yep.
that side of things.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've only just recently moved back to Sydney
Yeah.
in 2023 after being in a relationship that was abusive, that was not safe, and that I
Yeah.
was extremely, extremely unhappy in. And again, I faced that kind of question of people saying, why would you move to Sydney when your business is in Newcastle?
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm trying to get away and I need a
Yeah.
start. And I think going through these experiences makes me so much more compassionate to other people, and just like don't jump the gun and assume things.
Absolutely. Have a little bit of compassion and understanding, and just take a second before you pass judgment or ask like invasive questions like that. Like,
Exactly.
just think before you speak sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's so easy to just be judgmental and just make assumptions. It's easy, but it's so important to be compassionate and to be open minded and non judgmental, because yeah, I definitely experienced that, and thinking, oh, what are people going to think? Like, there's a lot of pressure of even, yeah, like this time around, of people being like, I can't believe that you'd move away from the business. How are you going to do that? Blah blah blah. And it's a decision that I've made for myself personally, and it's because of these reasons. And I
And
don't.
I think as well, when you make a decision that will affect your life, it's your decision alone. It's your decision, and it's your decision alone, and you do not need to justify your choice to anybody else
100%.
at all.
Yeah, for
At
sure.
all. I just want to say thank you for sharing that with us, and I know that that's something extremely, it's a very vulnerable moment to share online, and I really hope that if anyone that is listening has potentially gone through a similar experience, that there is resources and help and support out there. And, all you need to do is just reach out. And, I've said before on the podcast that my DMs are always open, and I'm sure Sequoia's are always open as well. And we'd be more than happy to always extend, links to particular services or anything else like that. Yeah,
Yeah, there's a lot of support out there.
most definitely. And I think the things that you've experienced and the things that you've gone through, and the way that these men had tried to take your voice and your power away from you, and the way that you've built yourself from that,
Hmm.
is such a testament to who you are. And I hope that you never ever let anything else dim this incredibly beautiful and bright energy and light that you have around you, and what you bring to other women's life. Because you've definitely, like, I know, again, we've only met once in person, but like we interact all the time on social media, but that aura and that essence that you have about you is incredible and deserves to be completely free to be.
Thank you so much, Jess, and thank you so much for having a platform where I can speak about it and other women can speak about, their story. So thank you.
You're so welcome. I feel very honored to be able to do this. Okay, well, another little question that I do want to ask you is sort of going back to the gym and the fitness space and everything else like that. And I wanted to know a little bit more about, and potentially if our listeners don't really know much about competing and the bodybuilding space and things like that. And I wanted to ask you sort of what your experience was like with competing. Like, I know the last time I actually saw you step on stage, I watched you compete in person in Queensland. So tell us a little bit more about that too for you and what that means to you.
For sure. So I've done 5 shows.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started in 2017, and then my last show was last year. So I won my pro card, and then I backed it up and did the pro show. And my relationship with competing, I would say, is quite a positive one.
Mm-hmm.
I have a strong sense of myself. I am really confident, and my relationship with food isn't bad and wasn't bad to begin with, but I will never come on a podcast or any space online and say that it doesn't have its implications. I would say that I definitely struggle with body dysmorphia.
Mm-hmm.
I know that what I see and things that I pick out is from bodybuilding, because you're forced to look at every single minuscule inch of your body. And quite often, like, I will still catch myself saying things, and, like, quite often Ebony will be like, oh, Zach, like, you're being ridiculous.
Shut up.
So I will say that that's definitely been a side effect. And after I had won my pro card, say I suffered a little bit with binge eating, not to an extreme. I don't even know if I want to label it that, but there was periods of times where I felt like I was not in control of my food.
Mm-hmm.
And I have women in my coaching space who speak to me about wanting to compete, and I'm always just so honest. I immediately get on a call.
Yep.
I say, this is what it is. Are you prepared to be told, in the most basic sense, you're not good enough because your waist isn't small enough, but that girl is because hers is smaller than you? And they go,
Yep.
oh. Like, and that sounds really brutal. Like,
but you have to be honest, like the reality of what competing is and what it entails. You have to be so honest. You have to. Like, I've turned clients away in the past where I'm like, you are not ready. You would not be able to handle the mental pressure and sort of the expectation of where you have to be mentally in order to compete. And that's not a bad thing. That is not a bad thing. It's just the reality of what it is to compete.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's like when you're in a prep, it's like you are a different person. Like, I'm listening to David Goggins on the treadmill. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
You've got to find these extra little bits of discipline that you didn't think that you had.
Yeah, literally. I would have to do my cardio without shoes on because I was getting blisters all the time because I was on the Stairmaster so often. And like, I remember there was one prep I had done. This is a couple of years ago now. The first coach I ever had. Oh my God, I now, like, even now just get a little bit re-triggered. I was doing so much cardio. I was still on the pill at the time when I was competing. This was probably like my first season of competing. And my body fat just wouldn't get low enough for what the comp was, right, for bikini. And he was just upping my cardio, lowering my food. And I remember, I think I was spending about over an hour every day on the Stairmaster, to the point where my hip flexors were so tight and so sore that I could barely lift my legs to get in my car afterwards. Yeah.
Which, it's like, anyone listen to that, it's like, stop doing that. But it's like, when you're in it, you've got to do
You can't, yeah. Like, it's so tunnel vision.
It's crazy.
It was crazy. Yeah. I've been really grateful that I've been competing for 10 years, like in different federations now. And I feel like I'm at a really good place now with my relationship with my body, with food, with bodybuilding and competing. Like, when I'm on, I'm on. And when I'm off, I'm good. Like, I've found a really, really good balance. But I think for a lot of first-time competitors, you don't realize, like, I used to have my first season. I remember I had a stash. I had a stash of like lollies and chocolates and sweets and stuff in my bedroom. And I would go at night and I would just stuff my face before when everyone was already in bed. And I had this coach, my first ever bodybuilding coach, and I just said to him, I was like, I can't stop eating. Like, what's wrong? And he's like, okay, you need to do more cardio.
Yeah, that's the answer.
Yeah.
More output, please.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Ebony actually reminded me of a time when it was like 2018 comp, and she was at my house, and I was frying white fish, but next to it I had Tim Tams, and I was like frying this white fish and then eating Tim Tams in the other side.
Oh my God.
And so I think back then I wasn't in the right mindset to be
Yeah.
like when I won my pro card, like when I say I was on, like I was on.
On.
And
That day when I saw you compete, I was like, she's just amazing. Like, so good. Absolutely incredible.
yeah, and it's also like I had obviously COVID, but I had to think 3-4 years off competing. And during that time, I didn't count my macros. I was strength training. I had obviously built up my maintenance to be really high, that I didn't really have to cut on crazy, crazy calories or anything like that. And, I guess anyone that's listening that's in the competing space, if like have some time off, it's going to do you a world of good, and you're going to have a better prep. Same thing, like similar to what you were saying. Then when I backed it up and did my pro show, I had to really ramp things up. I had to do an hour of cardio 7 days a week I was doing. Because your body just adapts, and what tool do we pull out to try and get you leaner?
Exactly. And like I did back-to-back shows. So I did the end of last year and the beginning of this year as well. And I remember like the comp that I did at the beginning of this year, I was so burnt out by the end of it, like physically, mentally, I was just done. And I said to my coach, I was like, I need at least 12 months off, 12 to 18 months minimum off. And he's like, yep, cool, whatever you need.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of women think that they want to do a comp for the experience. And that's great. Like, and you know what? Some women might do it for the experience and they enjoy it. And I'm not saying that like that, but my answer to that is always, at the end of the day, on comp day, you're going to look left, you're going to look right, and you're going to go, oh, I don't feel great. Like,
yep.
And you can do a photo shoot. You can get that kind of experience elsewhere where it's not stepping on stage. And also, I think another driver for people is, discipline. I just want to push myself. It's like, but if you're struggling with anything food related, anything consistency related, if you think that a competition is
going to fix that, no.
And even if you can push through for the comp, post show, you are going to be fucked.
Yeah, absolutely. A competition will not fix your relationship with yourself or your relationship with food. That is it. That's the bottom line. And if you're in a good like space with both of those, go for gold. Do as many comps as you want to do. Absolutely. But yeah, I think there definitely needs to be more of a conversation with coaches, especially being honest with clients coming to them for a prep.
Oh yeah. And like if you watch a show, you see it.
Definitely.
And it's like, I know that like, the coaches might feel bad saying to someone, you're ready for a prep, or it could be a financial thing. They're just happy to take the money, like whatever it is. But that's someone's life, and that's like serious permanent damage that you can have on that person. So I think, yeah, you're exactly right. It needs to be spoken about and it needs to be put out there. As coaches, can we collectively be on the same
Agree? Can we agree, please, everyone?
Yeah. Don't agree on anything, but let's just all agree.
Oh my gosh, far out. Well, okay, we are going to sort of wrap up the episode a little bit now, but in terms of what you've achieved this year and what this year has looked like for you, how would you sort of summarize the year of 2024 for you?
It has been a big year of healing. I love the home that I live in. I live with Tay Carew, which is another competitor, if anyone knows her, and we live in a really beautiful home. And I remember when I told my therapist where I was moving, and she said, oh, that's a beautiful place for healing. And I've done the most therapy and hypnotherapy that I've ever done in 2024. And I also feel in a really good position with balance. Like I went to Europe this year. I've spent a lot of time with my girlfriends. I've done a lot of things for fun. I turned 30. I had a great 30th. But then I feel like I'm balancing, the business quite well. we say.
Yeah, definitely.
That stress out.
We try. And then we stress every 5 seconds.
But I feel like I'm doing a lot of things, but a lot of things that make me happy.
Yeah. I think this year was definitely the year for you.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways.
Said that. That's nice.
Yeah, the year for you, because, the previous year, the relationship that ended and everything else like that, like this year, I think was every single thing that you wanted for you. You did it, you got it, and you went there, and it's all, the fruits of your labor have sort of come to light this year. So I think that's incredible for you.
Thank you. It's like I said, it's exactly what my friends have said. This has been the year for you. That's beautiful.
So thank you so much for joining me today, honey. I really appreciate it. And like I said earlier in the episode, if anyone has experienced any of the things that we've spoken about today on the episode, or if there's anything that you need more support around, please reach out to either myself or Sequoia, and we will always be there. And, if anyone in Newcastle hasn't checked out Club 94 yet, please make sure you go down.
The doors are open.
And as always, please make sure that you hit the like and subscribe button below. And if you have anyone that you would recommend to be on the show, please make sure that you leave a comment for us, and I would absolutely love to interview them. And yeah, that's for the episode.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.